And our next guest that we're going to have on is somebody who's also a sports enthusiast. He used to play with the University of Pittsburgh as a quarterback, so he's a college football star. And in addition to that, he is the founder of Global Entrepreneurs Institute. So wonderful news that he's going to be on our show as well. So what we're going to do before we have him on is we're going to show a quick little video of something that I think is really inspirational. It's a video of a gentleman by the name of Curt Schilling. And many of you know of him because he was a famous baseball player. And he went through something pretty dramatic a few years ago. So I want to show you this because it has to do with his commitment level and his commitment to win a World Series and what he was willing to do in order to actually push himself to win and compete at that World Series. So as soon as this video is done, we're going to have Dr. Dave on. He's going to be a great guest. So watch the video. I'm sure you'll be inspired.
The legendary story of Curt Schilling in Boston began at a Thanksgiving dinner in 2003 when Theo Epstein worked out a deal and contract that brought Schilling here in a trade from Arizona.
I wanted to go somewhere where I had a chance to win a world championship for 4 consecutive seasons, and that narrows the field tremendously in Major League Baseball. And I believe one of the contenders in that field is the Red Sox, and that made it ultimately a much easier choice.
Hey man, hop on in. So where you headed?
Boston. Gotta break an 86-year-old curse.
Curt's first season in Boston was brilliant. He led the majors with 21 wins, was 8-0 in his last 9 starts, and played a major role in getting the Sox back to the playoffs. Despite a sore ankle, Schilling opened his postseason with a win against Anaheim in the divisional series. Unfortunately, that ankle failed him in the opening game of the ALCS against the Yankees as he ruptured a tendon sheath. The injury left Schill just a shadow of himself on the mound. And not only did the Sox lose the game, but it was unknown if number 38 would be lost for the postseason.
You know, the bell rang and then I couldn't answer it.
Could you not push off and drive, Curt?
I couldn't. We did everything we could do to try and fix it, and it just wasn't working. And I was trying as hard as I could to make adjustments, but I couldn't get it done.
But what happened after is one of the most gutsy moves in sports history. Sox team Dr. Bill Morgan basically tied Curt Schilling's tendon down to the bone to make it stable.
It's a light drizzle falling at Yankee Stadium, and it is likely to stay wet all night long as the Yankees and the Red Sox get ready for Game 6.
I hope it snows tonight.
No team has ever been down 3-0 and come back and won 3 in a row. No team in baseball.
The story with Schilling, the ruptured sheath around the peroneal tendon in his right ankle.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
A horrible ankle injury that many thought would cost him the rest of what was left of his season. Somehow he has recovered enough, and he pitches tonight for Boston.
First of all, healthy all of a sudden out of nowhere, really.
Yeah, well, we don't know how healthy he really is. I mean, this is a big game pitcher, but this is the biggest mystery of his career, I think, going out there tonight.
I was one of the first few guys to walk into the training room right after they had done surgery on his ankle right there on a training table.
Show. It's good now.
Sharp fight.
Look at that. Unbelievable.
It was amazing. I mean, I thought at the time it was semi-barbaric.
I can't ever remember this place being more alive than it is right now.
I made the comment before the series started about, I can think of nothing better than making 55,000 people from New York shut up. I go out there and get my ass handed to me in Game 1, and they were anything but quiet. I had one last chance to make that happen. I was looking forward to hitting that top step and hearing those people boo me. They fed me as much as any crowd ever.
Blood-soaked sock around that right ankle. Like a scene from The Natural, Schilling climbs the mound and prepares to take on this Yankee lineup.
Let's see what Curt Schilling has with his wounded right ankle. Let's see if the Yankees bunt up the first base line, forcing him to move as much as possible.
I was trying to keep the heartbeat regulated and keep the blood pressure normal.
And Schill took the mound in Game 6, blood seeping into his sock from the surgery. Like a scene from The Natural, Schilling pitched a gem against the Yankees, only giving up 1 run in 7 innings of work. And the Sox won 4-2.
Tonight, God did something amazing for me. I tried to be as tough as I could and do it my way, Game 1, and I think we all saw how that turned out. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do this alone. And I prayed as hard as I could. I didn't pray to get a win or to make great pitches. I just prayed for the strength to go out there tonight and compete. And he gave me that. And I just can't explain to you what a feeling it was to be out there and to feel what I felt.
The Sox would go on to finish the greatest comeback in baseball history in the Bronx to move on to the World Series.
Welcome back to Abundance Coaching TV. Wow, what a video. I just was inspired. I watched that live when I was watching the World Series. I sometimes watch the World Series. I usually try to catch it. Obviously, I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan, so for the American fans here, you probably don't love me for that, but they did win 2 years in a row back in the 90s, so, so we have something to cheer for. But what a great story. The Boston Red Sox had not won the World Series for years and years and years, and they had to break what they called the curse. And Curt Schilling was one of the reasons why they won that. But it took incredible commitment for him to be able to push through. He didn't succeed in his first try. In fact, he was injured before he pitched the first game that he pitched, and he lost. But they put him in again. He was their starter. He was their all-star pitcher. And they put him in again. And you saw what happened on the video, clearly. So, Dave, what do you have to say about that video? What does it do for you?
Well, I think Jerry Anderson mentioned that, success isn't about how you reach the top. It's just getting up one more time than you get knocked down. And that drive and that perseverance, that commitment, that long-term commitment, because there's short-term commitment, but that long-term commitment to being a champion and reaching that dream that dream and that goal that we've had all our lives.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, Dave, you have an incredible story. I got to hear the long version of this, but it's so good. I want you to share it for our viewers, and I know that there's people here that are actually from the Global Entrepreneurs Institute that are watching us live or will be watching the replay. But you have a great story. You were a quarterback for the University of Pittsburgh. So tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us about some of the things that you realized as a result of being a quarterback, too. You have a great story. Go for it.
Well, to make a long story short, Scott, I've been telling that story for probably 15 years now. And each time I relive that experience and that season in my life, I have new insights into what makes me tick and what helps us to really pursue our dreams. And it really started out with a passion in me, and I really believe that our passion is buried beneath our pain. And I had a passion in myself that it wasn't to be a champion, it wasn't to win a national championship. Those were goals that I had. But my passion was really to hear my father say, "Well done, man. I love you. I'm proud of you." And I had a relationship with my father that my father was always there driving me, pushing me, but he never really told me he loved me. And so when I left for the University of Pittsburgh on a 4-year athletic scholarship, my passion was really to hear "well done." Hear my dad say, "I'm proud of you." And so that drive in me became goals in me that really weren't my goals. And so that pain of really just being the best and wanting to be the best, just to hear my dad say, man, I'm proud of you, was what drove me. And so I spent 4 long seasons. I went to the University of Pittsburgh in '73. It was the first year that freshmen can play in Division I college football. And, of course, Tony Dorsett broke onto the scenes that year. He was the tailback on that team. And so we had 4 years of, it was called a major change in Pitt football. And Johnny Majors had brought to the University of Pittsburgh, it was the losingest football program in the country the year before. They were 1-10. And so in 4 years, they call it the Cinderella team, because in 4 years, Johnny took a loser to a championship, to a national championship in 4 years. And I had the privilege of being on that team and being in that program with people that were just amazing athletes, amazing individuals, and people that were committed at different levels. You know, we talked a little bit about the level of commitment that people have, and I saw commitments at different levels. People that came into the university that had a goal all their lives was to be a professional football player. We had guys around the team at the university. Pat Croce is an example. Pat ended up being the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. He was the president the year that Iverson took the Sixers to the championship. And so Pat was actually a trainer on that football team. So I got I had the privilege of being around individuals that were just developing, that have become world changers. You know, Tony Dorsett, Johnny Majors, Pat Croce, Matt Cavanaugh was the quarterback of that team. And Matt went on to be a quarterback for, I believe, 3 Super Bowls. And he coached the Ravens to the Super Bowl championship. And so I was always around these athletes that had this drive and this commitment at a different level.
Yeah.
Because my commitment wasn't in athletics. Mine was really just, my commitment was, man, do the best I can so Dad can say, man, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And my other goal, which really affected my level of commitment, was I really wasn't in it for football. I was in it for an education. You know, I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor, or a dentist. And so my level of commitment was completely different. And so it panned out after 4 years of striving to be the best with a different motive, which is really key in a commitment, is what is your motive to your commitment, you know. And so my motive was different than some of the guys on the team. And so over the 4-year period, that level of commitment really panned out, because when my number was called, when I had worked my way up to the number 2 quarterback our senior year behind Matt Cavanaugh, and I was literally sitting on my helmet on the sidelines because I didn't play a lot. We didn't really blow teams out that year. We had some pretty close games. But when Matt Cavanaugh was injured, I was literally sitting on my helmet looking around, and my head wasn't in the game. You hear that so many times.
Yeah.
That you got to have your head in the game. And my head wasn't in the game. So when I ran out, you talk about a convergence of everything in life coming down to you. And it's amazing what runs through your head, where I was literally the number 1 quarterback on the number 2 team in the nation. And that impact on my life just changed everything in that moment. I said, because you have a season, you have a career, and you have a moment. And that when that moment came, I wasn't prepared, because first of all, the level of commitment that I had in my life wasn't to the level that I needed to perform that day. And so when my number was called, I had 3 plays. And the big times you get 3 opportunities, and the 3 plays really were kind of endemic of my life for 30 years. And so the message that circulated in my mind, and I think that message is so key, is really a message that I have, is we all have a message inside of us. And my message was, that's good, but you can do better. That was my dad's drive. He would always say, man, that's good, but you can do better. And so to me, it became, man, no matter what I do, it's not good enough. And so the message became, man, no matter what I do, it's not going to be good enough. And so I lived with that message all my life, most of my life, until I understood that I was living a lie. And I challenge everyone that's listening tonight is are you living a lie? Are you a belief? Do you have a belief in you that isn't based on truth? And so over the past 30 years, as I recognized the lie, and that's why I'm so passionate about transformation, is the pain that it caused in my life really showed me that that lie was really a belief that wasn't true. Yeah. And all my actions and all my desires and beliefs were really based on that. And so transformation it comes from a renewing of the mind, a new mindset. And that's why I love working with the principles that Jerry was talking about earlier. The principles really is a new operation system that you download based on truth and facts. And when you operate out of a level on a foundation that's indestructible under pressure, because I say at some point in life, if your foundation isn't built on principles, then your building is going to rock and quake when life comes at you in a strong way. Oh, I love that one commercial they have on television where the young man is swinging on the swing, and then his dad's pushing him, and then the next one, it's a little bigger son, and he says, life comes at you fast. And that's so true. And so with my 3 plays, basically what happened is my first play was my play, I dropped the ball. And I said literally what mattered most in that moment was out of my hands. And so it seemed for 30 years, everything that mattered kept slipping through my fingers out of my hands. And so I left the university feeling incomplete. We went on to win a national championship. And for 30 years, I didn't wear my national championship ring. I didn't believe that I was good enough, that I had no part in that. But as I look back on it, I was just living a lie. And so when I went back to talk to some of the players, my wife Fonda had encouraged me to go talk to some players. And Jerry was talking earlier about I had really just been learning about having a relationship and talking to God. And God had told me, go back and talk to the champions and see what they had that you don't. And I thought, what do you mean what they had and I don't? Because I felt that there was something missing in me, and if I could just get that one ingredient off of these players. Pat Croce was that he had taken the Sixers to the championship. Matt Cavanaugh was the Super Bowl champion. And so I called these guys that I'd known 30 years earlier, and the doors were open. I really believe that God opened those doors. And so after 30 years, I thought, my wife said, just call them. They'll talk to you. And I said, these guys don't even know who I am. And sure enough, man, I called Matt, and the week they won the Super Bowl, he said, man, come on out. And we talked at Super Bowl headquarters. I went out to Pat Croce's home and spoke to Pat because I was really wanted to find out what was missing in me. And really what was missing in me was passion. I didn't have a passion, a belief system that was based on something bigger than myself. And when I recognized that these guys didn't have anything that I didn't have, and that's really my message, that all of the listeners out there, that we all go looking for one more thing. We think that if we just have this one thing, if I have this, we have everything we need. We just have to believe and have a belief system that will stand the storm. And that's really why I'm so passionate about the principles and Lorette and the program that Jerry talked about, Global Priorities, because you're inputting a new operation system that will weather the storm.
Oh wow, that's so awesome. You were limited, but because you didn't have that passion and your belief systems as well. And yeah, you're right. You have to believe. That's awesome. And just for the viewers that are just checking in with us today, this has been a series. It's actually called the Vertical Life series. So that's season 1. And we talked about passions and who you are in the second episode. So you can go back to that if you're feeling like, hey, maybe I don't have passion. What does that mean? How does that look? You probably find that would be a really good resource for you to identify what passion is for you. And Dave, that's actually something that a lot of people that I encounter with coaching discover is that they lack passion, or else they don't say it, but there's ways that they actually say, hey, passion's one of those big things that I just feel that I lack. There's a difference between compromise and commitment. Can you describe the difference between compromise and commitment?
Actually, yeah, commitment is really when we're bound to something emotionally and intellectually. We're tied to it. We're attached to it. That's commitment. And with commitment, the opposite, not really the opposite, but the other side of commitment is compromise. And compromise is really a promise or an agreement that you make to really to make concessions. You're making concessions, and a concession means you're conceding. And so you're either committed fully, like Jerry Anderson, you're fully engaged to the cause, or you're compromising. There's no, it's really the two paths that we can take. And when you compromise, you're making concessions, and so basically you're succumbing to defeat already. And so Jerry talked about commitment, and the commitment that and how he was fully committed and all these things. But to me, it's just one of the components of becoming a champion in life. And championing life is commitment, because if we don't fully commit, and sometimes we don't do that because we're overcommitted. I think you talked a little bit about that early on in the program, that sometimes we overcommit. But a lot of times that's just not being clear on where we want to go, having a clear path. And so we get divided, and so we're half as much as that we can fully engage. And so we really have to recognize that compromise is a killer.
Yeah.
And unless you understand the commitment and the passion to follow through with commitment, because everyone starts out initially to commitment. That's why we say the Global Entrepreneurs Institute is not for the faint of heart. And so to be a champion is not for the faint of heart. And so a lot of people come into a program, or anyone that initially starts out will say, I'm committed. But unless there's passion behind that commitment is going to wane and fade over time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. And I have to say that I've actually received coaching from you with the GEI, and you've actually given me coaching, and I just know the person that you are and how passionate you are. I can totally see what you talked about earlier about passion being the one thing that you didn't have. Man, you got it now, I promise you.
Hey man, and from a coaching perspective, I was told after my second divorce, okay, and I talk about pain because I'm a dentist, I'm the pain guy, but after my second divorce, my ex-wife said, you're not passionate about anything. And I wanted to say, what do you mean I'm not passionate about anything? And I thought about it, and I really didn't know what my passion was. So for 2 years, I really asked myself that question, and I encourage everyone, and you probably get that in coaching, I'm not sure what my passion is. And I say it's buried beneath your pain. And my passion, really, my pain was never hearing my father say, man, I'm proud of you. Well done. He died before he ever could say that to me. And so my passion to be the best at everything I could do, be the best dentist, be the best football player, be the best father, drove me. But Wayne Dyer talks about striving, never arriving, and I would reach these goals. I'd reach one goal and you'd arrive, but you keep striving you set a higher goal. And so you never have a sense of satisfaction, and so when I learned that satisfaction comes from what we do for ourselves, and significance comes from what we do for others. Nice. And Jerry said about bringing value to others people's lives. When I started to recognize, when I became clear on what my passion was, when I was really willing to dig into that pain and say, man, what happened to me and my father? What happened to that? How can I prevent that from happening? What am I passionate about? That I realized that my drive to be the best came from my pain of not feeling like I ever was good enough. And so that drive and that passion is really what helps us to sustain commitment.
That's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, we got to wrap up right away, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about what you're really passionate about, which is the Global Entrepreneurs Institute, and a lot of your followers and people that are involved are actually watching here. So tell us a little bit about what it is, tell us how we can find you, and tell us about, what you guys do.
Well, the Global Entrepreneurs Institute was really started several years ago with Jerry Anderson and Bernie Torrance and John Shaw. And I had really had heard about the roundtables and studying the principles. And so I began to go to a roundtable, and these principles started changing me on the inside. And so I got a hook in my mouth. I wanted to change. I saw, man, this is something that I need in my life. And so I just, after 2 years of 2 cycles of going through roundtables, I said, man, I want more. That was, Wayne Dyer also talks about the disease of more. I wanted more because I needed more, and nothing was enough. and that not good enough. So I said, man, I need more education. And so Bernie Torrance and I had a meeting one weekend, and I said, what's the formal program? I want some credentials. I want a certificate. I want my master's and my doctorate, because that driving me is more and more was really the disease of more.
Yeah.
And so as I've grown and matured, I've realized that you have to have a point where you get off and you say, man, I'm there. I've arrived. Like I hear a lot of the professional coaches say, we're going to enjoy this victory for 24 hours. I heard Alabama's coach say that. So, but the Global Entrepreneurs Institute really was something that I wanted to give back to people because it changed me so much. And so what I wanted to do was take it to the world online. And so we're able to train people through the global priorities, the principles of Lored, and build this foundation of principles that structure it. If you build a building, you start with the foundation. And life begins with foundations. When you have that foundation of these principles, and the next level then is really having a coach or a facilitator for a year. And so you can come into the Global Entrepreneurs Institute by just contacting me at my Gmail. It's Dr. Dave, Dave, Migliore @gmail.com. And I can take care of you. We do it individually. We have 60 students right now internationally. We have around 60 graduates. We have 17 international coaches. And it really started with a really desire for me to improve myself, to build that foundation in me. And then I was searching for significance in my life. And now what can I do for others? And so it's a tremendous program in that you have a champion with you for a year that we call it the SEAL. If you have someone that provides support, encouragement, accountability, and love, you can't go wrong, because we really can't sustain change without accountability.
That's right.
And so that's what the GEI is all about.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Very cool. So, yeah, it's been fantastic having you on our show. Dave, you're just a person who's just full of energy, full of life, great stories, but also a man of character. And, yeah, it's just amazing to have you here, and it's a privilege for me to be able to interview you here on our show. So thank you so much for being with us.
Scott, I just wanted to say that you and I have probably known each other for, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I remember when we first had contact that you were searching and not for sure, but I'm just so proud of you for what you've done. And here you are, you have your own television show, and I'm just so proud of you because you're going for the dream. I see the little sign behind you. I think that says change.
You bet, man.
I've seen a big change in you, and it's like you turned in your 60-watt light bulb for 600 watts, man. So you're shining bright. So thank you for what you're doing.
And thank you so much. I don't just take that. I take that right in. I really receive that. So thank you so much. And you know what the reason is, and this is for the audience, I'll speak to you. The reason is because I got committed to what I feel I'm called to. And just like what you were talking about, what Jerry was talking about a little bit earlier, is what's in your hands. Like what do you have? What do you have control over? And I love what both of you had to share about passion, because each of us has something that we're called to. Each of us has something that we have in our hands. We each have an amazing gift, a talent, something to really just shine in the world. And I love what you talk about too, champion. You recognize that on my website I talk about champions too. And to be a champion is a huge thing. So I encourage you to reach out, because you are a champion. You were created as a champion. You were created amazing in the first place. Find that thing that just like you got a grip on, that you just can't find as encouragement. And also as your challenge, as I'm setting up our next episode, find a way for you to actually make 2013 the best year ever. And one way that you learned today was with what Jerry was sharing with us. And what he said was, take 3 pieces of paper and I'm going to do this. And just like, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your family? And what is God calling you to do? So write down the 3 things: spirituality, family, and life. And what you're going to do with this next year, because it's important. Your legacy is in your hand. So get committed, step in, jump in with both feet. So thank you so much, Dave. It's been a privilege having you here on our show. I thank you so much for being here.